There are moments in Formula One that feel less like sports headlines and more like power. Struggles straight out of a political drama. Christian Horner's sudden departure from Red Bull is one of them. For over 2 decades, Horner was the face of Red Bull racing, the architect of its dominance, the man who guided Sebastian Vettel to 4 consecutive world championships, and then engineered the rise of Max Verstappen into one of the greatest drivers of his generation. He wasn't just a team principal, he was Red Bull racing itself. But today, Horner finds himself on the outside looking in. Yet if there's one thing we've learned about him, it's that he doesn't accept endings easily. The whispers coming out of the paddock suggest he's plotting something bigger than just a quiet retirement. This isn't a man who walks away. This is a man with unfinished business, and according to insiders, his next move might be designed to hit Red Bull right where it hurts the most for months. Speculation about Horner's next step has been building. While many thought his time in Formula One was over, conversations behind closed doors suggest otherwise. He's been linked with Alpine, a team in desperate need of direction and credibility after years of decline. He's been mentioned, half seriously, in connection with the FIA after Toto Wolff joked about the chaos Horner could cause if he ever joined the sport's governing body, and yet, beneath the surface, all of these possibilities point toward one truth. Christian Horner will not vanish quietly. He's preparing a comeback and it might come in a form that would shake Formula One's balance of power all over again. The first and most realistic path for Horner lies with Alpine, the Enstone-based team that has the resources, the history, but none of the recent success. Right now, Alpine is struggling badly rock bottom in the Constructors' Championship, riddled with leadership instability and still searching for a clear vision for the future. For a team backed by Renault's might and fueled by massive investments, including Hollywood names, the underperformance has been nothing short of humiliating. What Alpine lacks is exactly what Horner offers: ruthless direction, political sharpness, and a track record of turning chaos into championships. The possibility of Horner stepping in at Alpine as team principal, or even as a part owner, has been whispered about more than once. There's already speculation that he could buy into the team with a significant stake, somewhere around 20%, costing him nearly $300 million. For most people, that number sounds impossible, but Horner is not just any man. After Red Bull, he's financially secure, and some insiders suggest part of his exit deal with Red Bull included a payout big enough to set him up for exactly this kind of move. If Alpine is a redemption project waiting for the right leader, Horner is the one man with the experience, the connections, and the stubborn will to drag it out of mediocrity. But of course, nothing is simple in Formula One. Flavio Briatore casts a long shadow over Alpine's leadership, and any Horner return would depend heavily on his presence or absence. The two are old friends, yes, but also two powerful men with strong egos. For Horner to take full control, Briatore would have to step aside or accept a diminished role. And this raises the bigger question: would Alpine truly be willing to hand over the keys of its project to the man who once turned Red Bull into their biggest nightmare? The alternative scenario that's been floated, though less likely, is Horner stepping into a role with the FIA. Toto Wolff may have framed it as a joke, but he also admitted something telling: if Christian shows up at the FIA, I'm in real trouble. It was lighthearted, but Wolff isn't known for throwing words around carelessly. The idea of Horner in the FIA may seem strange at first. After all, he's always been the frontline commander, the man in the garage fighting stewards, arguing over penalties, and playing mind games with rivals. But history tells us it's not impossible. Stefano Domenicali, once Ferrari's team principal, is now the CEO of Formula One itself. If Domenicali could make that leap, why not Horner? Still, the FIA path doesn't quite fit Horner's nature. He thrives on confrontation, on competition, on the adrenaline of the grid. To bury himself in bureaucracy would be like locking a lion in a cage. It might look powerful, but it wouldn't be alive. And so, while it's a possibility, most insiders agree it's not his destiny. Instead, Horner seems far more likely to return to where the action is, to another team, another garage, another chance to outwit Toto Wolff and every other rival who once fought against him. And if he does, the sport itself would instantly feel more alive. Because love him or hate him, Christian Horner brings drama, unpredictability, and a kind of energy that Formula One has been built on since its earliest days. If Horner does reappear, with Alpine or anywhere else, there's one critical challenge he'll have to face: drivers. At Red Bull, he managed some of the most difficult personalities in the sport, from Sebastian Vettel's sharp competitiveness to Verstappen's fiery demands. He knows how to balance egos, how to shield drivers from political storms, and when to unleash them to their full potential. Alpine, by contrast, has struggled badly in this department. Pierre Gasly has talent, but he hasn't been able to shine. Consistently, young prospects like Franco Colapinto offer promise, but nurturing them into stars requires the kind of leadership Alpine simply doesn't have. Horner's arrival would change that dynamic overnight. Suddenly, drivers would know they had a protector, someone who would fight their battles all the way to the FIA's doorsteps. just like he did for Verstappen when he once stormed out of a meeting to argue a 5-second penalty. That kind of leadership matters. It builds loyalty, it builds trust, and most importantly, it builds results. But there's also risk. Horner's downfall at Red Bull wasn't just about internal politics, it was about performance. The technical side of the team began to falter, and as the man at the top, he carried the blame. If he takes on Alpine and history repeats itself, the narrative shifts from redemption to decline. And that's why this next move is so pivotal. It's not just about where Horner goes, it's about whether he can prove that his legacy wasn't simply built on Adrian Newey's genius or Red Bull's money, but on his own leadership and vision. As things stand, one thing is clear. Christian Horner isn't finished. Juan Pablo Montoya, Robert Dornbos, and even Pierre Gasly himself have all hinted that the paddock hasn't seen the last of him. Montoya went as far as to say he'd hire Horner in 2 seconds if he were running a team like Aston Martin, Cadillac, or Alpine. That level of respect doesn't come lightly. It's born out of decades of proven success, political cunning, and an iron will to win. Horner's comeback isn't just a possibility, it's an expectation. And whether it comes through Alpine, ownership, a shocking FIA twist, or even a late wildcard like Aston Martin, one thing is certain, Red Bull should be very, very nervous. Because the man they pushed out might return not just to compete, but to prove a point. In the end, this is bigger than just one man's career. It's about legacy, about power, about what happens when the empire you built turns against you. Horner's story is one of resilience, ambition, and unfinished business. Formula One has always thrived on rivalries, on drama, on personalities who pushed the sport beyond the limits of the track. Christian Horner embodies all of that. So the only real question now is, when he returns, Andy, whose empire will he be building, and whose empire will he be tearing down? And that's where I want to leave it with you. Do you believe Horner will become part owner at Alpine, or do you see him returning in an even more shocking way? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be diving in to read them. And if you want to keep following stories that reveal the power plays shaping Formula One behind the scenes, make sure you're subscribed, because this battle, it's only just beginning.